and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where in preparation for the 1v1 Alpha Cup, which is going to be, if you're watching this the day it comes out, tomorrow, Saturday the 12th here, no, sorry, yes, yeah, the day it comes out, so Saturday the 12th, will be the Alpha Cup, and in preparation for that, I figured it might be a good opportunity here to take a look at some top-level 1v1 games, and what I've got for you today is maybe one of the longest 1v1 replays that I've ever seen. So, you know, buckle up, sit back, and relax. Get a drink, get a popcorn, get some snacks, whatever it might be, because you're in for an absolute treat between some top-tier commanders duking it out here on Crystallized Plains. I believe it's Crystallized Plains. Is that the name of this map? Let me, hold on. Yeah, Crystallized Plains. Today, spotting as the blue Armada commander. Right here next to this very potent, I believe it's 5 metal per second metal extractor here. It's going to be none other than Pro Randy. Clocking in at 51 open skill and going to be showing us what he's got as, again, an Armada commander. Now, this is a little bit of a change of pace for the last, oh, I don't know, forever of 1v1s. It's been Cortex versus Cortex versus Cortex versus Cortex. Cortex has dominated the scene, but with the changes recently made to Armada, despite significant nerfs in a lot of directions, there were also some quite significant buffs, and one of which is, of course, to the Pawn's HP pool. So the Pawn, I guess it really was more of a nerf, right? The Cortex Grunt's got a significant range nerf, and the Pawn's got an HP buff. So it means that essentially what ended up happening is that the Pawns are now effective counters to the Grunt. It means that Cortex vehicles are going to be much more popular, and indeed, that is what we're seeing right here. As on the other side of the map here, we zoom all the way out and go on over towards the red commander. It's going to be none other than Club. Clocking in at 42, open skill, going to be showing us what he's got. Also as an Armada commander, interestingly enough, I was expecting to see core vehicles over here, but it's actually arm vehicles, which is a bit interesting. Going to be showing us some good old-fashioned arm gameplay. Look at that silver metal wrapped around that commander's neck as well. Very, very cool. All right, let's get into it. A couple of those rovers have already made their way across the field here and are looking around for any cheeky plays, trying to see if maybe there's, you know, ticks running across, whatever. They're already in the back line. Dang. What a brutal tick right there. One tick managing to shut down, well, the entire economy here for Club. 5 metal per second goes down to just 2. That is a brutal loss right there. Obviously going to be able to rebuild this mechs pretty quickly. But, yeah, any amount of time, and especially, of course, killing that 50 metal for a meager 21 metal for that tick is quite a trade, and I'm certain that it's given Randy a little bit of hope here as this game is bound to move forward. Already one of those very cheap construction bots heading out here and claiming a couple of extra metal extractors, which is quite nice because, again, if the same aggression comes across and hits Randy, it does mean that the economy isn't completely crippled, just about, you know, 50% crippled or so. Still pretty bad, but definitely not as bad as losing the entire economy here. We do have another tick up on this high ground. I actually wouldn't even mind seeing this thing just biding its time, just waiting. Just waiting in case a constructor goes up there. I don't know if any changes were made to the rover. In fact, we can always take a look here at the changes, and you can always pause this and take a look right here. I'm just taking a look for the rover because I know the Rascal was changed. I believe it has a bit more HP. Was the biggest buff, but the rover might have been unchanged, meaning that Ticks versus Rascals is essentially a positive matchup for the Rascals, I believe. Again, that's one of the reasons why we're watching this, is to figure that out so that we're all prepared for that 1v1 tournament. It's going to be a blast, by the way. We've got tons of top-tier casters as well going to be covering the event. We've been coordinating between ourselves, trying to find out who's going to be casting when, and I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity for everybody, not only in the bar casting community, but also just in the Beyond Our Reason community in general, to get involved with some proper pro-level tournaments. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Cannot wait for the day when we have, you know, a StarCraft 2S, you know, a $1 million tournament and whatnot. We have these $1 million tournament winners like Cyril and others that, you know, can claim those gigantic prize pools. Super excited about that, but obviously you gotta start somewhere. So sign up if there's time. The signups may be closed by the time this video is live, but if there's still time, I would urge you to sign up. They're open to everybody, but I will warn you, competition is gonna be stiff. Blitzes with a little bit of their change as well recently. They received kind of a weird sort of a change, not necessarily a buff or a nerf per se, but basically they had their model reworked so that they don't collide with each other as much when they're firing. It means that you take less friendly fire damage, accidental friendly fire damage, and also they can shoot past each other quite a bit easier, which is quite nice because obviously when you're using these blitzes, they tend to ball up quite easily just because of how fast they are. They tend to get to that sort of single Q point very quickly. them being able to shoot past each other, maybe not as necessarily important with these pros that can seemingly micro multiple armies all at the same time, as if they had multiple hands, doing multiple things all over the place. But in the lower level gameplays, in our games, it's certainly going to be a little bit more useful. And also very useful for tracking down these pawns, yeah. You know what, I don't mind it at all, actually. Crystallized Plains is a relatively flat map. There's some hills for sure, but there's mostly a bunch of flat terrain all over the place here, so I think these blitzes are actually a pretty good move. Yeah, I like the play right here from Indy Club. Going for the blitzes definitely means that you're safer from the early aggression. Obviously, it means that you're not going to have every opportunity to get across the map as easy, but Indy Club doesn't really care. He's not going for units to go across the map and do damage. He's going for eco-scaling. We do have a constructor back here building those LLTs, trying to scale those metal extractors as quickly as possible, but Indy Club has very greedily expanded outwards here with the commander in order to claim, well, the middle of the map, which is kind of interesting. There's loads of pawns moving around on the northwestern side of the map as well as the eastern side of the map, all of which trying to find an opportunity to slip into the space. LLT in position, but one LLT I wouldn't say is sufficient to guard against all this. We do have some blitzes though, which is quite nice. Those blitzes can obviously be used for the base defense or go across the map for some offense, and it looks like we're, well, trying to get ourselves into a little bit of a base trade here. Yeah, the red force is headed across the map right here to try and take out Randy's main eco expansion on the left-hand side, while meanwhile a whole bunch of those pawns are waiting in the murk and the mire on the northern side, hoping to catch a constructor that may be moving in this direction. But no such constructor exists. In fact, all the cons are at the base right now, save for, well, the D-gun wielding con, the commander over here on the front line, as we have our first contested metal extractors. Big old push of blitzes right here. Ooh, that's dangerous. You know, if I was Randy, I'd be a little bit careful here. Actually, you know what? Okay, the E-storage is up and running. That's one of those things that I've definitely seen the pros mixing in a little bit more aggressively here, are these E-storages. And it makes a lot of sense, right? If you're going for that E-converter ship, you need a whole lot of E-storages to have the space to convert the energy. That's something that's not talked about very often, but you actually can only convert as much energy as you have the space to convert, right? So if you have 1,000 energy storage right here and your bar is all the way down here, you can convert at most like 900 energy or whatever. You know, if it's all the way down, you'll convert at most 1,000 energy per second, but when you get into those later economies, it's not unlikely that you'd have more than that amount of energy production. So that's kind of those weird unspoken things about Beyond All Reason that you don't really figure out until later on. So there you go. Maybe just help some poor noob's day. Save them from wondering why on earth they can't seem to convert all their late game economy, their energy, into metal. A little bit of hesitancy there in the pull from Indy Club, and I think it's going to cost him that blitz. Otherwise, I think these tanks might have been able to actually clean up that whole swarm without any losses. These tanks are going to come on back here to try and defend the base, though. LLT gives its life to shut down most of these ticks, and at the end of it, I think probably a fair enough trade, right? The pawns go down, they take out the metal extractors, there are constructors here to rebuild, and obviously with the construction turret as well, this is going to be quite nice. Whoa, nice self-destruct micro. Hey, look at that. Self-destructing the LLTs here to pop the blitzes. It is an efficient trade. 110 metal for each one of those blitzes versus, what is it, like 85 metal or something? Whoa, sorry, throwing my phone around here. 85 metal for the sentry turret, so, you know, if it's a one-to-one trade, technically speaking, it's going to be metal efficient. But the Great Wall has been built right here. Yeah, look at this. Indy Club trying to cut off the blue forces from being able to aggress through this right-hand side. The idea being, of course, that if you cut off this right-hand side, you can freely expand to all these metal extractors over here, as well as just focus on forcing the battle into this direction. Kind of seems like what Indy Club is going for. This is a very metal-rich map as far as 1v1 standards go anyways. Not the most metal-rich map, mind you, but certainly one of the richer ones. Man, I love that. Oh, that self-destruct micro is beautiful. Look at that. He took out 3 of those blitzes and heavily damaged 2 more. For the cost of a single LLT, it's so difficult to pull off, but it's exactly the situation that you want to self-destruct it in. Man, I know T3 is epic in this game, but it's the little micro details like that that really get me excited. Watching the bros pull off those moves that are otherwise so difficult to do because you have to be paying attention 3 different places on the map at once. That's kind of where Bar is going, right? It's where the top upper echelons of Beyond All Reason are headed, where every little micro detail matters. Like not ramming your units into exploding metal extractors. Got to be so careful. 3% HP left on that blitz right there. Obviously, phenomenal damage right there. 2 metal extractors down. That's a, what, 4.6-ish metal hit to the economy right there. Metal per second hit to the economy. It's important to specify, I guess, because metal per second and metal total is not the same thing. That's calculus, baby. Learn that. High school, I guess? When did I first learn calculus? That's a good question. Long, long time ago. Calculus is beautiful. Anybody who's on the fence, I'm assuming there's at least one of you out there that are on the fence deciding between statistics and calculus. Choose calculus for sure. 100%. 1,000% choose calculus. So much more interesting than statistics. Yeah, I wanna pretend to know where the ball is gonna be or which ball is gonna be pulled out of the hat. No, thank you. I think I'd rather figure out exactly which ball is gonna be pulled out of the hat. Thank you very much. Anywho, back to Beyond All Reason. The Great Wall is being dismantled. And that is the issue with these T1 static defenses, is as soon as a rocket bot or, you know, 5 pawns come out, you can suddenly trade out against these T1 laser defenses, I mean, relatively efficiently. Suddenly, I want to say Indie Club is essentially forced off this line. LLT's here, okay, doing some work. A lot of pawns had to trade their lives in order to push through these defenses, but again, they're static defenses. They're not retreating and getting repaired or anything like that. They're just going to be whittled down slowly but surely. And Randy knows it. That's why he's only putting 1 Rocketeer on these. It doesn't really matter how fast these fall down. He's not looking to expand in this direction. It's just a potential avenue for units to maneuver later on if need be. Ooh, cancel. Cancel. Ooh. Oh, very close cancel. Manages to cancel the LLT just seconds before it would have been wasted. Those LLTs do go down eventually from the raid by the blitzes. I like these little raids right here that Indie Club is doing. Yeah, going for just a little bit of poking damage, not trying to lose too many tanks, but just trying to kill the mexes and the LLTs, and then retreating back to this relative safety of this side of the map here, trying to make the very most out of these T1 blitz tanks. T1 blitz tank is not a spam that I feel like I've seen very often. It's definitely something new to the meta, but I'm excited for it. We do have constructors finally moving out here. There was a brave con that went out in this direction, but without an escort, did eventually get sniped by a couple of pawns that made their way in that direction as well. Big old static defense array coming up on the left-hand side as constructors set up LLTs, beamer turrets, a couple of these Twilight stealthy cloakable metal extractors, and some walls for good measure. Love to see it. Another one of those micro tips I would love to hand out to everybody. The height of a wall just so happens to be perfect that if you put a Rocketeer directly behind it, it will be able to fire over the wall, while enemy Rocketeers will not be able to. Yeah. Use that in your own creative ways, but the obvious implication is that if you build a wall and put Rocketeers behind it, it's pretty much unassailable by other Rocketeers. They really can't push forward without having to waste a huge amount of effort in order to do so. And these Rocketeers that were used for clearing the LLTs on the southern side have now been repurposed, been repositioned here to try and clear away some of these LLTs on the northern side. But again, this all has bought the time that I think Indie Club was hoping for, just sort of expanding that metal economy and continuing to move forward. I praise as the Blue Commander has all the advantage right now. Metal energy, what is that? Energy production, metal production, army value, defense value, and total damage value. All in favor right now, Pro Randy. By all intents and measures, a fabulous game for the Blue Menace. And yet, blitzes still look pretty good. I guess ultimately that really is the power of the blitzes. They're just slightly better than the pawn. And here's a cheeky play. Okay. Now I happen to have spoiled how long this replay is for myself, so I know this is a bit of a risky maneuver right here, but we're going to be going for some of those gunships, the Banshee gunships. And I have to say, it's actually... Yeah, I haven't seen a... I haven't seen a gunship all-in with the new gunships. Now, they weren't, strictly speaking, heavily reworked. They essentially just got a weapon change. The weapon is just, like, reskinned, essentially. But yeah, it's definitely weird to think that something even just as simple as that might have changed the way that these units interact on the field. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how much value these can get. Suddenly, we've dumped almost 1,000 metal into these Banshees in the air. I certainly hope that we have a plan for them. We're not just throwing them away. We do have a very brave constructor moving forward here to grab these mexes and just put down some radars. There we go. Yeah, units will be microed around. Randy's like, wait a second, did I see that correctly? A single constructor over here is going to die right next to his brother. Well, there we go. Lone constructor will die up there, and it looks like we have a nice little run by over here as well. Meanwhile, the Banshees are pulled. Screaming their way across the map right here. They lose track of that commander. Randy does cloak and hide that comm, and it will eventually be detected by those, but not before the Banshees have already made it into the base. A Ferret anti-air turret is now firing away with those twin anti-air missile launchers. We also have some other, actually another Ferret over there firing away here. Banshee's trying to snipe whatever they can. I think the metal extractor here, the 5.0, is probably valuable. Yep, he does manage to get it. Ferret's eventually going to shoot all this down. Was that really 1,000 or so metal worth of damage? I'm not convinced. I'm really not convinced here. Build power is dead, though. That is huge. Losing all that build power definitely hurts pretty badly, but it's not like we're not retaking that value on the other side of the map. 2 dead constructors, 2 dead expansions. The metal economy is looking quite sour here for the Red Commander. Really the biggest bonus, the biggest benefit that it looks like Indy Club has is just that energy production because, well, he didn't just lose all of his wind turbines in the base. Wind speed has also plummeted, though. So these heavy wind turbine economies are now collapsing, as you can see the blue com actually going for just a good old-fashioned solar spread. Gonna put a bunch of those solar panels down just because they're the only really perfect metal to energy converter. Dump 100 metal in, get 20 energy out. It's a bad trade, but it does produce energy, and that's really all the blue commander really cares about at this point. It's going to be a bot lab transition at this point, which feels really strange. Going vehicles suddenly into bots feels like a really, feels like a strange play. It feels like you would just stay on the vehicles, but I suppose these res bots are going to be worth it. Going to resurrect pawns here. Okay. Maybe the plan here is to just go for a bunch of res bots and try and claw our way out of this game, or out of this situation in this game that way. It's a bad situation to be in, though. You never want to be defending by resurrecting your opponent's army. If you can manage to pull it off, it's a crazy comeback maneuver, but you never want to rely on that, right? Because it essentially hinges on your opponent making such an inefficient trade with their units that you have all the time and space in the world to resurrect all of them and send them back in their face. Yeah, I like the play right here from Indy Club. He's hoping for it. He's got the Dragon's Claw, which is super useful for defending against these big swarms like this. That lightning can do tons of work against big clumps of units like all these pawns right here from Randy. Randy, meanwhile, is just taking this time to leisurely expand horizontally. Not going into a different tech path, rather not going deeper into any one tech path, into T2 bots or vehicles or anything like that. Instead, just going into some vehicles, going into some bots, and going into air all at the same time. Apparently inspired, by the way. Has a couple of Banshees. Do we have any Banshees out already, or is this the only one? Okay, we've got the first Banshee is out, and another one is queued up right here. Gonna be reclaiming thousands of metal worth of T1 units right here. I really don't mind it, but all those units that were on the offense here have been pulled back, so that's nice. A nice deflection from Indy Club. LLTs. Not ideal against Banshees. Certainly 1% or so per blast. It's a strange battle, but I think the Banshee does win this one. Indy Club going for some anti-air as well as some LLTs to defend this right-hand side. It comes to a point where you have to make a critical decision. One pathway that you might choose is to tech upwards. Tech forwards into T2, and that's what it looks like Indy Club is going to try and do. The other option is sort of what you see here from the blue commander, is teching outwards. And that is essentially diversifying your forces into a bunch of different areas, going for a bunch of different laboratories to produce a whole bunch of different things. And at this point, I really wouldn't mind seeing all these bots, basically this bot lab, eaten up and then using all these bots to just go spam wind turbines or something on the side. Yeah, exactly like this. You can see Beamer turret, by the way, doing a great job of defending over on this side. Beamer turrets are so underrated. They're very highly rated, and I still think they're underrated. Scout planes coming across. They do find the T2 lab. That's an important discovery. Seeing T2 means that the timer is ticking. Randy knows it. Army value here, nearly double the, no, pardon me, 1.5x the size here of the Red Commander. And yeah, I think seeing that T2 has ultimately triggered the wave here. This has to be an efficient fight. There's no way Indy Club survives this without taking a really just ridiculously, stupidly efficient fight right here. Big old bundle of pawns moving forward on the right-hand side. Gigantic army of pawns moving over on the left-hand side. It's a dual-pronged attack here, but there is anti-air available to thwart these Banshees, which is very important. Those Beamer turrets, like I said, they're so good. Carving away at the armor on these medium tanks here, melting them down tick by tick. And eventually, a bunch of those medium tanks will go down, but the beamer turrets will fall. 3 medium tanks for 2 beamer turrets. Not quite efficient, I would say, but it did slow this down ever so slightly. Buying time right here. Whoa, into club in some trouble. A lot of LLTs to guard that commander, so I think he'll be fine, but definitely a clincher right there, looking at all those pawns running towards the commander. But now the lightning tanks are out and available. Before going for any of those T2 or anything like that, instead building a couple of those very powerful T2 units, those lightning tanks are the perfect decision here. Going to be wonderful anti-swarm to shut down all these pawns, pushing forward into the facilities right here of the red commander. They do a good amount of damage, so they're good against the medium tanks. They also have a nice bit of speed, so they can kite around the projectile of the medium tanks. And then, of course, they have that chain reaction, so they can also deal with big swarms. They're sort of the multi-tool of the T2 vehicle lab, and it makes a lot of sense that we're producing... Oh, and they're cheap, did I mention? 330 metal is nothing here for especially a T2 economy, but even a T1 economy can still get away with that. But we've let some units get away. Will we be going into T2 anytime soon here? We are reclaiming the T1 laboratory, so that says to me that we're thinking about it. I wonder if we're going to put it in a different spot, though. Maybe a slightly more guardable position. Sorry, not guardable. A slightly less, a slightly more aggressive position is really what I meant. Ooh, Twilight does get some value there. Lovely stuff. Beamer turret trying its very best. We have these res bots trying to, yeah, they're going to repair. Oh, that's pretty nice. Yeah, those con bots can actually repair this. They can out repair the damage from these bots pretty easily, actually. We are throwing metal at each other and just hoping that something sticks to the wall. Pawns now fighting medium tanks when Jaguars are available doesn't feel like a worthwhile trade. Eating up these units and turning them into T2 might have just been a more efficient way of doing this. Just flat out metal per metal, total trade value. Probably the more efficient option. Beamer turret, getting a whole plethora of kills. 22 to be exact. And there we go. These guys are going to resurrect 1,500 metal, and that pays for the T2 transition. Where are we going to make it? Randy, we have got to get that T2 on the field at some point here. These lightning tanks are going to make all the world of a difference here if we don't stop them with T2 of our own. Obviously, the issue with the mirror matchup is if your enemy already has T2, then they have the tools to kill you while you go for T2. So you really have to be sure that you have the resources necessary to get into T2 without stalling out and giving the opportunity, giving the enemy the opportunity to push into your base and kill you with the T2 they've already got on the field. Because, man, those tanks are brutal. Medium tanks, I mean, the thing about medium tanks is they have just enough HP to contend with the Jaguars, just kind of. But it's a really, really bad trade, and not one that I think Randy is keen to take, ever. But you have to choose between a bad option and a worse one. Randy going for a death blow. T1 Stormbringers, the 145 metal, 4,000 energy T1 Armada bombers, which were slightly buffed in the last patch with a little bit of a range reduction. Just a little bit of an improvement to the bomb bays. The drop the pods allow them to drop them a little bit quicker, meaning that the spread is reduced ever so slightly. Gotta be headed across the map. Anti-air truck starts up immediately. Bombs away on top of those T1 metal extractors will take those out, and now the wind turbines are in jeopardy. Oh no. Wind turbines falling left, right, and center as it's bombs away, and they double back around for another pass here, looking for an opportunity to take out as much of this economy as possible. Yeah, I think spreading them out is probably the right decision. Stormbringers excel at carpet bombing, covering a wide area and firepower rather than a direct target. And it's exactly the kind of thing that's devastating to wind turbines. Alright. Well, there's one way to bring things back around here. Suddenly the energy economy is twice as big right now for Randy as it is for Inda Club. Metal economy is fluctuating as well. You can see going up and down depending on that reclaim. Reclaim is quite powerful here for the blue commander because obviously, again, with that trade of medium tanks, there was thousands of metal that just practically handed over. I like this little construction squad building wind turbines. This is really passive eco-scaling, but very, very effective. We've already got the E-converter, so these are going to pay for themselves, essentially. If you're playing Armada and you're not scaling with your wind, you're kind of missing out on the biggest facet of the economy. Less differential over the Cortex wind turbines than they once were, but still quite powerful. Efficiency is off the charts. On a map like this as well, where 18 is the highest wind speed, you only need to be above 14 in order to be more efficient than an advanced fusion reactor. So building wind turbines is never going to be a bad decision here for Armada in the wind space. I almost can't help but wonder if a little bit more build power is necessary here. Well, actually, we got the build power. We have a lot of metal. We just don't have the energy to spend. Yeah, so I guess the fusion reactor is the right choice. 21,000 energy. And, of course, dumping all that into that fusion reactor as quick as possible is going to be necessary in order to provide that stable energy economy that it looks like Randy is going to need. Do we have solar panels or something here? I mean, we have a bunch of T1 solar panels, but really it is just pure wind right now for Randy. Managing to spend his metal and put it on the field, though, and that's all that matters, right? You can see banking 2,000 metal right here means that despite having a gigantic metal production advantage, there's still just more stuff on the field here. You know, that being said, I'm running the numbers in my head here. These Jaguars are 4,000 metal worth of tanks. These medium tanks are 3,000 metal. Yeah, it's easy to imagine that this army is cheap right here from the Red Commander because they're the cheapest units in the T2 laboratory, or the T2 tanks anyways. But they are actually still quite expensive. Bulls coming up right now. That is a bold choice. Yeah, we got the fusion reactor almost done, but medium tanks are headed towards the base. It's a now or never moment for the lightning tanks. They have to deflect this attack, and it looks like they will. Well, I can't help but wonder if throwing the units away to shut down that T2 laboratory would have been the move right here. And again, it's just more metal you're donating here on the field. Trading them out somewhat at the very least stalls this. Looks like Randy's just going to sit down and accept the face-to-face battle. Okay. Trade here leaving 2,000 metal available for the Red Commander, but it was essentially a diversion, as now more and more of these medium tanks roll over on the left-hand side to take down a couple of beamers and some metal extractors. They need to get out, though. Either get out or try and dive the base, one or the other. They've gotten their value, but if they can escape with their lives, they'll get a whole lot more. Indiclub doesn't want to let it happen, though, obviously. Wind turbine squads building loads and loads of those wind turbines as well here. Randy's still committed to multiple laboratories, not interested in teching up. I'm so surprised. I really am surprised that they're continuing to stay on that T1 tech rather than teching upwards. We've got the Resbots. Maybe that's the plan here from Randy, is just to use Resbots to resurrect any of these units that we kill. That's an interesting playstyle, and I suppose it does kind of work when you're using that T1 versus the T2. Obviously, it means that you're not going to overkill nearly as badly. Janice might just about do it, but yeah, it looks like that's the play. Oh, what an interesting playstyle right here from Randy, just making use of those Resbots to resurrect a bunch of these tanks rather than going into T2 production of his own. How cheeky is that? I wouldn't recommend that sort of playstyle in your own games. It's so APM intensive having to micro all that. These heavy tanks here, the Bulls, completely obliterating all of the T1 tanks right here. And I just can't believe this isn't the moment to go for T2. There we go. Yeah, Resbots have now put together a decently sized T2 army. If these can start to trade out against the Bulls and we can resurrect some of those one by one, it's really not going to be the end of the world. Resbots are forced to flee. Indiclub chasing them down. This is the issue with that strategy. Obviously, Resbots are kind of flim-flamsy. Trying to lead them towards the Twilight. Oh, the Twilight self-destruct does paralyze all of those Jaguar. Making good use of that very underutilized Armada T1 cloaked metal extractor that has just a little bit of EMP around it. Apparently those are easier to self-destruct, or it was blasted down. I'm not sure which it was there, but it looked like it was self-destructed in 1 second, just like the spy bots and whatnot do nowadays. If that was changed, it's a good change for sure. Anything that's intended to be self-destructed should be instantly self-destructible, at least in my opinion. In this humble commentator's opinion. Janus missiles do fire away before death. It's so easy for these lightning tanks to find value. They need only glance in the direction of, well, practically any unit they intend to devastate. 2.5k mass difference structure, says says one of the co-commentators. Randy thinking about it. Oh, nice. Wise move. Doesn't actually end up going for the D-gun right there. Instead, opting to just wait and see if the LLTs can take care of it, saving the D-gun for the Bulls. Nicely done. Nearly 3,000 metal right down the drain right there. 2,850 metal, something like that. Directly down the drain for the red commander as the D-gun connects with those heavy Bulls. Managed to do a bunch of damage to the economy, of course, but you gotta remember, as those T2 mexes come up and online, we're quadrupling the metal production per mex that's online here. This is a 20 metal per second metal extractor. And obviously it puts Indy Club in the lead at this point. So maybe the biggest advantage, not even the units, but just the sheer fact that the economy can scale so easily just by building those extra metal extractors, those tier 2 metal extractors. Medium and lightnings clashing once more. The bull tanks also trying their very best. We have the constructor planes reclaiming from the front line. Nice little tidbit from those Jaguars is, of course, that they have that anti-air missile, which means that they will shoot those planes out of the sky, but here go the res bots to actually clean everything up. Okay. It becomes unbearable at this point. Randy is now forced into producing T2. We have the T2 Con, which is, of course, going to prioritize that 5.0 metal extractor. But now that we're at T2, the question really does become, is it too late? I mean, again, those T2 mexes are up. We have a Pitbull turret over here. I was wondering what that symbol was. Bull tanks pushing forward into the LLT defense line. Shrugging off the light laser blasts like photon ticklings in the night. And we've kind of come full circle. This is really all the way back to that T1 era where Indy Club was just doing that light poking, just sort of prodding the enemy, poking down bases wherever possible. But man, what a difference these res bots are making. Able to reclaim so much mass from these front lines so quickly here. There really is no unit that compares to them as far as the reclaim efficiency goes, so to speak. At 130 metal apiece, they need only reclaim for a couple of seconds to make up their value. I've said it before, and I'll say it every single time because it is often underlooked, underutilized in Bar. Need to somehow find a way to eat these up. A couple of res bots to go eat these solar panels would be even better than reclaiming from the front lines. Little bursts of 150 metal per second is pretty good. I like it though. We have the air cons to assist the T2 con building these T2 mexes is kind of cool. Obviously gives a little bit of mobile build power, much more mobile than anything that, like, for instance, a bunch of vehicles attached or consoles or something like that. Nice snipe right there. Spy plane shot down by the T1 Falcon. Zooming its way across the map right here. Its funny little W-shaped body. The Wario Falcon. Camera a little bit buggy right there. No problem. Buggy is my middle name. Right buggy works. Here's a little bit of damage. Here's a little bit of damage. The Bulls find the T2 laboratory and bring it down. Construction turrets, ooh, yeah, accidentally eating a bunch of that laboratory. Gonna be forced to produce a T1 lab just to have something. Oh no, oh don't tell me. Don't tell me. The D-gun of the century clears away every single one of those tanks, well, save for a single bull manages to escape with its life. But every other one of those tanks gets D-gunned away right there by Randy. What a save. My goodness, it really doesn't get any cleaner than that. Randy in just the right position, at just the right angle, and firing the D-gun at exactly the right time, manages to tear down all of those units. This was a dead game just about exactly a second ago. And now we have some, well, a way back into this. These res bots are going to be nice for reclaiming, resurrecting, of course, all that good stuff. Going for a bunch of static defenses immediately here. Gonna start setting up the statics because a second wave is almost assuredly on its way. Randy not necessarily out of this game, but that was a serious hit right there. Punching through the defenses and cracking that T2 means production is down for a long, long time. Luckily, with the power of resbots, you can sort of simulate production by just reclaiming and resurrecting a whole bunch of these T2 tanks, which happens to be exactly what Randy is going for. A smart move right there. A way to not waste any production time in the downtime. Bulls firing away. These light tanks do struggle against the Bulls. Well, I should say they struggle against the weapon of the Bulls. They actually can deal quite a bit of damage themselves. Oh, nice. Yeah. Twilights are revealed. You can see how hesitant he is to fight these. Yeah, every single time going in against one of these, a little bit scared to pull the trigger because obviously it means a whole bunch of your units are going to get paralyzed. What a cheeky move right there from the blue commander. Remembering, not only using his units, but remembering to use his units. These tanks on fire, yeah, hold fire or return fire command. There they go. They're switched to fire at will eventually. But there we go. You can see the psychological effect of those Twilights is that these tanks weren't killing things nearly as long as they could have been. Bunch of E-converters pop off right here. The Bull trying not to friendly fire and failing ever so slightly. Advanced Geo coming up and online. Wow. Okay. T3 Laboratory just plopped down. Excellent timing right there as the red commander just now puts down the laboratory. Ooh, don't leak that metal, please. Oh, please don't leak all that metal. Okay, it was close. Quick maths, but it was definitely in the correct ballpark right there. The red commander just gonna go for T3 off of basically the energy production of the AGO and the energy production from the wind turbines, and then of course the metal production from all the T2 metal extractors. Once you get basically your half of the map upgraded to T2 metal extractors, there's not really much of a reason not to go for T3. Resurrected Bull is going to be the name of the game right here. I like it. More of this army undead than not. T2 Mex is coming up and online as well. I like to see it. Yeah, T2 Lab was resurrected, or, well, it would have been rebuilt, I guess, actually. So it does mean we're starting to get those T2 out and rolling again. But yeah, we need these T2 Mexes set up properly here. Nice to see that we've staticked this area on the right-hand side, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive to push in here. T2 metal extractors, obviously worth guarding at 8 metal per second, 9.1 metal per second. Very, very valuable, but here we go. S-tier unit. Going for Marauder, of course. The red commander, always going to reach for those Marauder, I should say Armada commanders, always going to reach for those Marauder first off. They are slightly more expensive than a Bull, and obviously several times more efficient. They're quite a bit faster, they do a lot of damage. They're a Bull, but on steroids. E-converters coming up here as well. No sense in wasting that metal. Might as well build something to convert it into a bunch of metal. E-converters are the tool for the job, and the Marauder are now out and running across the battlefield. Randy must have spotted this. He must have sensed that there was some sort of transition coming up, because obviously your enemy doesn't pump off the brakes, or let off of pumping the... your enemy doesn't pump the brakes after such a successful attack, right? Taking out the laboratory, taking out a bunch of the economy, popping a bunch of metal extractors, all that is super valuable. Randy knows that there's something going on, and that's what these Bulls are sent off to Discovery. It's a Discovery mission to see what exactly has been building over here. This could have been a T2 air transition with a dozen bombers and a whole bunch of fighters built up as well. That would have been quite difficult to defend with just static defenses. We do have this chainsaw, which is quite nice, but obviously those bombers, those T2 bombers can pump out enough firepower to take down those, even the T1 static defenses, even the bomb-resistant T1 static defenses with relatively little issue. I like what we're doing here. This is the moment that Randy sees it. Yep, all forces retreat. Full retreat here as T3 comes across the field. Resbots still trying to resurrect whatever they can. And now we get to see the efficiency of Marauders versus Bulls. Basically, they're direct comparative. A almost one-to-one direct comparative. Wow. Lots of co-commentary here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on so we can remove that. I always like my co-commentators in the spectator seat, but sometimes things get a little too high APM to read. Bull's just flat out ignored over here. Managed to take down some X's. That's a nice little hit of damage. Definitely going to direct a little bit of attention here from the red commander away from that area. And obviously, when the metal economy is based on, ooh, this is dangerous. When the metal economy is based on those metal extractors, hitting them, well, it hurts a little bit more than when it's based on energy extractors, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Starlight here, very powerful, but very out of position. Ooh, don't like that. Luckily, it kills the Marauder that's actually causing it some trouble here. Starlight are perfect for defending against these early T3. Oh. Oh, it didn't go down. AGO in tons of trouble right here, but the Bulls got in each other's way, and so the AGO does live, as well as the console, to repair everything back to high health. Now we're finally getting to see some of the static defenses here in use. Pitbull turret gonna fire away right here, but Marauder obviously fast enough not to have to worry about it. Nice. A successful little raid right there. Starlight's in position to shut these down should they push any further. And Into Club knows it. Pulls them back very nicely. T1 Air being built right now. Bunch of bombers are queued up. We're going to get into some of that T1 Air to try and just go for another big bombing run. A lot of this is wind turbine based. A lot of the energy economy right here. But those early fusion reactors have really scaled nicely for the Red Commander, who's now benefiting from 2 fusion reactors as well as the energy of the wind turbines. Bunch of T1 constructors and a T2 go down right here as a fight is forced. Pitbull turret will be helping out quite a bit here. The Starlight also quite nice. Oh, bomber accidentally shows itself. Yikes. That was preemptive for sure. Didn't mean to show that bomber off quite yet. I'm almost certain of it. Bomber's gonna do what Bomber's gonna do, though. Starlights are essentially the right tool here. The only issue with Marauder is that they're just so fast that there's only so much that you're gonna be able to do against them. They can just run past your defenses. Yeah. We've arrived at a checkmate. The Marauders simply avoid the units right here, heading into the backline, crossing right over those T1 walls, and now blasting apart the main base right here for the Blue Commander. Down goes the T2 laboratory once more. Marauder over here, continuing to do a bunch of damage as well. Bombers headed around the map. AGO is the main target. Okay. Bombs away. Boom goes the AGO, just the right amount of bombers right there. Bulls trying to go for a desperate push here as well. I mean, those Marauder can hold their own quite nicely, but that's a lot of Bulls. It's worth respecting anyways. These Marauder have gone on a tear, though. Resurrected Marauders back from the dead here to defend their country one last time. Well, to defend the other country for one last time. Reminds me of a particular show, but I won't name anything for fear of copyright strike. Those of you who know will know, though. These look like extremely bombable structures to my eye. Obviously, my eye is operating with perfect vision, though. Turret. Surprisingly effective at dealing with Marauders, actually. Still one of the most stalwart defenses I've ever seen was a couple of T2 walls surrounding a beamer turret. Just like insanely efficient because the T2 walls protect from basically everything, and the sorry, not Starlight, the beamer turret, that's what it's called. The beamer turret is super effective at just dealing a consistent amount of damage. And over time, it can add up pretty quickly. And it's just barely tall enough to see over those T2 walls, so it adds up really nicely. Look at this, this necessary evil of placing a cursed T2 laboratory right in front of another laboratory. Where are the fusion reactors? The AGO is the only thing holding this all together at this point, and it really isn't. The energy economy has really made all the difference right here. Yeah. Yeah, having just enough energy to produce these T3 units to actually spend the metal that we're extracting here, it really has completely decided the pace of this late game. T2 walls coming up. Before they're built, they're extremely fragile. Starlight's continuing to fire away. And once again, when they're in position, they're so good. Here's where all the energy's gone, by the way. About a bajillion of these Marauder available. There's the fusion. It's a little late, but better late than never. Certainly, you know, a little bit of reclaim to eat up all these T3 units, and you're going to be able to afford it too, which is always nice. We've just been forced to build it in a really strange location because why are we resurrect? Oh, we're going to res it for the full value. Ah, it's only 29,000 or sorry, 2,900 metal in the T1 or the T2 laboratory when it's completely built, but it's going to be quite a bit less than that in the wreckage. Fusion reactor just inches away from being finished up. I feel like it's worth prioritizing. Then again, there's not really any metal to spend here either for the blue economy. Yeah. Reflected in the graphs quite well here. The metal economy is ginormous right now for our red commander. Going into a couple of T1 laboratories for some spam, and going into the good old-fashioned Lich to finish this game off. Yeah, smelling a victory here inevitably, as these T3 units have been more than efficient enough to make all the difference. Randy must be asking himself why on earth there's still another player in this game. Intends to end it. Randy. Cloaked, but not concealed by radar jamming, so he is vulnerable to these nuclear bombers. Do we have a scout plane? There it is. Two nuclear bombers and one Oracle will provide you the vision necessary. I wouldn't mind seeing a pinpointer or two just to make sure that we can nail it. But frankly speaking, that pinpointer dot is almost always going to be close enough to the commander anyways that nuclear bombers will finish the job. Look at this. If we just zoom out all the way, look at this gigantic wall of Marauder. Love that the red commander has just gone ahead and gone for the wall of the wall of Marauder, the Mauer de Marauder. T2 metal extractors coming up and online as well. We're still missing these two in the back right here, but not the end of the world, of course. It's only 2 metal extractors, but also it's you know, an extra, what is it, 18 metal per second? I know some commanders that would kill for 18 metal per second. Well, more fusion reactors coming up back here as well. Slowly building fusion reactors using the commander, but it's actually a decent strategy, right? I mean, this is going to take, you know, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, but 2 minutes on a fusion reactor isn't really very long. It sort of can replace wind turbine scaling on maps where you either run out of space or you run out of you run out of space or you otherwise need to, you know, switch to fusions for whatever reason. This can be a relatively passive way of scaling the economy. Comparable, I would say, to wind turbines with a whole bunch of butlers, for instance, like we see a lot of the time on Supremismus and other maps where wind speed is particularly high. We're headed for an engagement, though. Look at all this anti-air. Something tells me... Whoa! He spotted it. He still spotted it. Boom goes the blue commander. Those nuclear bombers, despite all the rest of the air being shot down, those 2 atomic bombers managed to find the final, well, the only commander here for the blue team. Indie Club manages to win this 1v1 that went all the way to the T3 late game between these top tier pros. What a wonderful match of 1v1. It's so rare that we get to see a late game 1v1, but it is always cool whenever we see 2 forces bashing heads against each other until one of them finally finds a result here. And in this case, it's going to be the red commander. Thanks a ton for watching, and if you did enjoy, please feel free to like and subscribe and join the Brightworks community down below in the description. There will be a link to the Discord, which is always popping off with interesting replays, tons of interesting characters as well, discussing the game, and plenty of fun stuff, events and the whatnot down there as well. Hope you guys had a wonderful time, though, and I will see you in the very next episode of Beyond Our Reason. Peace out, everybody.